Hi, friends. Welcome to another 5 Minutes of Hope. I'm the reluctant missiologist, and we've been talking about how to have hope in troubled times. Now, the times where we find ourselves, they qualify as troubled times. Listening to an interview this morning, they were talking to the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georga, and she says this is the darkest hour for humanity. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if there's been a darker hour in our history, but maybe in our lifetime, maybe the fact that it's the whole world captivated by this moment. But this is a dark hour. At the same time, today is Good Friday. It is Good Friday, and I want us to emphasize the good, even though the part of Friday that we remember isn't always the happiest part of the story. But like we've said in an earlier video, we can't have Easter Sunday without Good Friday, and we can't have Good Friday without Easter Sunday. It's that eternal hope that comes from the Easter Sunday resurrection story that allows us to go through the trouble of Good Friday. And it's what gives us hope going through whatever trouble we have. But on this day, this Friday, we remember Jesus and the cross. I love that we can have stories about the cross and we can have symbols of the cross that we have all over the place, whether it's wearing a cross or it's crosses hanging in certain places or crosses that are the centerpiece of a cathedral or the centerpiece of a chapel. But Jesus did hang on the cross, and this was something that baffled early communities as they heard about Jesus. In the Roman world, in the Greco-Roman world, when they heard about Jesus being God, but also dying on a cross, they were so confused. Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians. He says it was foolishness to the Greeks. It was incomprehensible. Why would a God allow himself to die? If he died, well, how does that make him God? How could Jesus be God and die the ignominious death of a slave? The most brutal death our human world ever created was the cross, and yet God did let himself die on the cross. It was because God wanted to rescue us. His love drove him to this place. The cross was the place where he could meet humanity's darkest hour. Our darkest hour was culminated on the cross, because when he was on the cross, the whole world turned dark, at least the world where he was, as the sun was covered. As the middle of the day, the sun was covered and it was completely dark. And yet, it was dark because he bore our sins and he felt forsaken by God the Father. But it wasn't the end. It was the end of our sin. He took that on the cross. He nailed our sin to the cross. He nailed so much to the cross, as Colossians 2 will talk about. But it's that remembering of the moment of the cross that we don't want to neglect in this time. That the real darkest hour we faced, we never really have to face. The culmination of our sin, our personal story, doesn't have to end in judgment and wrath, but can end in mercy and grace and redemption and the greatest divine exchange the world has ever seen, as we gave our sin to Jesus and God gave his perfection to us. The reversal of fortunes from us being humiliated and dead in our sins to us being changed in an instant, to being made alive and being exalted and receiving the glory of God in our own life as we are able to walk with God and live with God. What seems like weakness, what seems like foolishness, what seems like the despised is really the power of God at work. The cross is ultimately the end of weakness. We, as humans, found a way to destroy the weak on the cross And yet God found a way through that to show his power. God's power overcomes all of our trouble, all of our trial, all of our worst moments in the cross. And so as we face today, Good Friday, in this time, 2020, where the world is in a global health crisis and an economic collapse, we can hold on to hope because we know what God is like. He is bigger than our darkest hour. He is brighter than anything we can imagine. And his light begins to peek out even in this dark moment. So as we go on, keep grabbing onto Jesus. And on this Good Friday, remember him and the cross as you keep grabbing onto Jesus. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you.